And now, with all the latest headlines this Monday afternoon, it's the ITV Lunchtime News.
The scramble to safety, outrage as Russia tells people in Ukraine to flee to Russian cities. Ukraine's president says the plan is immoral as he condemns the deaths of civilians who tried to escape during an agreed ceasefire.
We will not forgive the shooting of unarmed people. We won't forgive hundreds and hundreds of victims.
How has it come to this? The 11-year-old who had to flee the fighting on his own, and the women who have to leave their families at the border.
Our dad haven't slept actually, and he just returned to our home there in Ukraine. And it was hard to say goodbye to him actually.
Here, the Prime Minister says we still need to control our borders as he defends the UK's response to refugees.
What we won't do is have a system where people can come into the UK without any checks or any controls at all. I don't think that is the right approach.
Born in a bomb shelter, we'll speak to the UN on what more can be done for pregnant women caught up in this conflict. Plus, a song of survival, the little girl whose voice is being heard around the world.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossainn.
Good afternoon. Russia's latest offer to allow Ukrainian civilians to escape the shelling is to send them to Russian cities. Here, the Europe minister said providing evacuation routes into the arms of the country that is currently destroying yours is a nonsense. Ukraine's president said it was immoral as he condemned the deaths of a family who tried to escape during a ceasefire at the weekend. One child who did make it to safety to neighbouring Hungary had to make the journey alone. There are more talks between Russia and Ukraine due to start shortly. More on that in a moment. First, here's John Ray with the latest developments.
Amid the ruins of their country, life for ordinary Ukrainians has become unbearable, even impossible. But despite the promise of so-called humanitarian corridors, there is no truly safe exit. Over the weekend, Russia shelled civilians trying to escape the fighting. Here, just a few miles from the capital. And in Kharkiv, the Russians are promising safe passage, but only into Russia itself. President Zelensky said, "We will not forgive the hundreds and hundreds of victims, the thousands and thousands suffering, and God won't forgive. Not today, not tomorrow, never." Vladimir Putin's hopes of a quick victory have been dashed. Here, a Russian plane apparently comes down in flames to the applause of Ukraine's defenders. Instead, there's a war of attrition. In Mariupol to the south, there's no food or water or sanitation. Britain says it will open its doors to refugees, but here, Home Office sources reveal that as few as 50 visa applications have been approved. The government is under pressure to do more.
What we won't do is have a system where people can come into the UK without any checks or any controls at all. I don't think that is the right approach, but what we will do is have a system that is very, very generous as the situation in Ukraine deteriorates.
This 11-year-old boy arrived alone in Slovakia with the telephone number of his mother written on his hand. She's still in Ukraine, staying behind to care for her own mother. "Please save our children," she begged. The EU warns that 5 million Ukrainians might cross the border in search of sanctuary. It's a refugee crisis on a scale not seen in Europe since the Second World War. John Ray, ITV News.
The next round of talks between Ukraine and Russia are due to start in the next half an hour. Let's get the latest from our Europe editor, James Mates, who is in the capital, Kyiv. What hopes of these talks leading to any change, especially given the choice for Ukrainians right now to stay or to flee to Russia or Belarus?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, the Ukrainians have described that as cynical, absurd and unacceptable. Ordinary Ukrainians wouldn't want to go for a start. Second, from cities like Kharkiv and here in Kiev, you can still leave into Ukrainian territory relatively safely and get out to the west. But also obviously the clear intention for the Russians here. They've tried to portray this as a rescue mission but the Turks are saying they think it will happen, and we're getting word from let's see. But the Russian demands at this stage, according to the Kremlin, remain that Ukraine be demilitarized, that it recognizes Crimea as part of Russia, that it recognizes the independence of those two republics, Donetsk and Lugansk, and that it's demilitarized and agrees never ever to join either NATO or the EU. Now, these, absurd as they are actually slightly more reasonable than the original Russian demands. So who knows if we're seeing some slight movement there.
As you say, James Mates, let's see. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Well, over the weekend, 2 attempts to evacuate civilians from the southern port city of Mariupol failed, with shelling starting soon after the evacuations began. Sergei Orlov is the city's deputy mayor, and he joins me now. Are people right now trying to leave the city? And if so, where are they going?
We have special procedure that allows us to evacuate our people. As a city council, we are ready to evacuate up to 3,000 to 5,000 citizens per day when we will have a safe corridor, humanitarian corridor to Zaporizhia. So at the moment, we are ready to make evacuation from Mariupol to Zaporizhia, and we're ready to transfer humanitarian materials to our city. But there is continuous shelling in Mariupol, and we did not have confirmation about safety corridor from Mariupol to Zaporizhia. So we are waiting, we are on our places, but we did not have confirmation, and continuous shelling in Mariupol is continuing.
In your role as deputy mayor, how do you even begin to protect people trying to leave under the circumstances you've just described?
I understand that it's an awful issue. So from our side, we do our best to provide to people basic utilities. We try to transfer some water, some foods, and to give our citizens hope that in a soon period humanitarian corridor will be able. But you're right, we faced with a kind of not only humanitarian crisis, but in a kind of genocide.
The choice today from Russia is for Ukrainians to stay in a city like Mariupol under siege, or head to a city, Rostov, the country that is invading you. How have people in the city reacted to Russia's offer?
I know that Russian guys talk to some people and use this propaganda and give them words to go to Russia direction. But we received information that they pushes them to go to Russia. For example, we heard some words from Vinogradnaya, guys. They told that Russian troops came there and told, you have 1 hour to evacuate to Novoazovsk, either we will bomb your houses. Not a lot of people want to go even in this condition. So we insist on safe corridor from Mariupol to Zaporizhia and ready to make such safety evacuation. Only ceasefire needed in Mariupol and during this humanitarian corridor.
Yeah, absolutely rejecting that offer then. Sergei Orlov, thank you very much for joining us at this incredibly busy time for you. Thank you, we do appreciate it. Let's get more now on how many refugees the UK is taking. Today, the Prime Minister said the UK's offer was generous, but ruled out a similar system to the EU, saying we still need to control our borders. I'm joined by our political reporter, Shihab Khan. Still criticism and confusion about what the UK is actually offering, especially in comparison to those countries across the EU.
Yeah, I think confusion is probably the right word to describe it right now, simply because the Home Secretary on the weekend, while speaking to the Sun newspaper, said that she was looking into creating this new route that would allow, a humanitarian route that would allow more refugees to come from Ukraine. That's then been contradicted by a Foreign Office Minister, by Number 10 and by Boris Johnson, all of whom have been focusing on the two current schemes that are available. That includes the family route and also the sponsorship scheme, where a community or a local authority will be able to in the future sponsor a Ukrainian refugee if you provide them with work and somewhere to stay. The Prime Minister today did say that he does want to go further, and we've been told that there's been a surge of staff that are working through the applications that have been coming through, but Number 10 won't tell us how many more staff have been working or how long it's taking to actually go through those applications. What we do know is what you heard in John's report, is that the Prime Minister does say that there does still need to be further checks in place and that it won't be an open door policy. What that means in terms of where we go moving forward, ultimately this is a fluid situation, so this could change very, very quickly, but a lot of contradiction at the moment from different government departments.
Shihab, thank you very much for that update. Thank you. As sanctions tighten on Russia in response to the invasion, oil and gas prices have soared once again. That has pushed petrol prices to a record high. At the start of the year, unleaded petrol was £1.46 a litre. At the start of the invasion, 12 days ago, it was £1.49. This morning, it has hit £1.55 a litre for the first time. Our business editor, Joel Hills, joins me now. The prediction is that it could get to 180 by the end of this month.
Yeah, oil prices are rising, Nina, and obviously when the price of oil rises, the price of most things rise. I mean, you've got a situation here where it's soared to levels where it's going to push up inflation and slow economic growth here in the UK. Sanctions are hurting Russia, of course, but they're hurting us too. The degree to which that happens, of course, depends how long this persists. Remember, Russia's a big producer of oil and gas, but along with the Ukraine, it also produces an awful lot of food and precious metals. Another wave of inflation, I'm afraid, is on the way again, and there will inevitably be a squeeze on living standards. You'll be feeling it if you're filling up a vehicle today. You'll feel it when you go shopping in the supermarkets before too long. Now, the Ofgem price cap does insulate households up to a point, but if the energy price remains at this level, then Cornwall Insight predicts that the average annual energy bill will rise by £1,000 a year in October. That's devastating.
Goodness. And what is the latest on the Russian economy?
Well, of course, Russia is right at the forefront of this. Western governments have imposed sanctions, Western companies are withdrawing, Russian people are withdrawing rubles from bank accounts. We've seen a slump in the value of the currency. The Moscow stock market is closed because there'll be a sell-off of shares if there weren't. Russia faces, let's be clear, a recession and a financial crisis, possibly both. They're really at the sharp end of this.
They are. Joel Hills, thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we'd like to spend a little time this lunchtime looking at help for pregnant women in Ukraine and the babies being brought into the world during a war. Less than 2 weeks into Putin's war, this is now the reality, a baby born in a bomb shelter. The UN says an estimated 80,000 women are due to give birth in Ukraine over the next 3 months. I'm joined now by Hossainn, the UN's lead on this issue in Ukraine. Thank you for joining us. What equipment and supplies are you trying to get into the country to save the lives of babies and their mothers?
Thank you very much. We have already the supply lines and the logistics ready. We just need corridors and access to these women. What we have is preposition a number of kits, reproductive health emergency kits that contain everything that is required in order to guarantee a safe delivery by these women. We are extremely concerned about the current conditions under which women are giving birth. I can share with you that, for instance, it's just in the city of Kiev, it's already hundreds of women that have been having their kids, their children, the newborns in makeshift shelters, in basements, in metro stations, in conditions that are absolutely deplorable and that put their life at very serious risk.
Yeah, this is the case, isn't it, that we're going to have to accept that some babies and some of their mothers are going to die in these circumstances, because we know when births are complicated, you need emergency specialist equipment, and you simply can't get access to all of that underground in a bomb shelter.
That's correct. These women, their babies, are also casualties of war. This is something that is oftentimes overlooked, and we keep on insisting in UNFPA, the UN Population Fund, the Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency of the United Nations, that women require access to life-saving services, services that will really enable them to go through this situation in a way that they will not lose their lives and the lives of their babies. It's absolutely fundamental that we set in place the mechanisms that will enable them to have those services available.
How concerned are you about hospitals themselves, including maternity hospitals, being targeted potentially by Russians? We know that the World Health Organization is investigating those reports.
There have been at least 6 hospitals bombed so far, and we know that several maternities and perinatal hospitals have also been bombed. We know that they are performing the most complicated procedures, surgical procedures, in the basements of the hospitals, again, under conditions that are completely inadequate. So that is already happening. They are being shelled and they are being targeted. And of course, we see that with utmost concern. We need these basic, services to be up and running for the population.
Yeah.
They should never be the target of any attack.
Yeah.
The civilian population, they need these services for their survival. And we hope that, that this will stop at some point. I mean, we're really making
Of course, we hope that too. I'm sorry we've run out of time, but thank you for this raising awareness of this important issue. Jaime Nadal, thank you. Thank you so much. In response to the growing humanitarian crisis, the UK has now raised £100 million in just 4 days through the DEC appeal. More than 1 million people have now fled across the border to Poland. Nick Dixon is at a crossing in southern Poland.
Safely across the border, women and children fleeing the Ukraine arrive constantly on foot here at Kroshienko. Just moments ago, Albina said goodbye to her father at the border crossing. He must stay and fight for his country. She has no idea if she'll ever see him again.
It was really hard because it was like a 24 hours trip without any stops. We haven't slept. Our dad haven't slept actually, and he just returned to our home there in Ukraine. And it was hard to say goodbye to him actually.
Of course.
Sorry.
Of course. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so it's hard emotionally. It's traumatic actually.
Because of the freezing temperatures, some women and children are arriving in Poland with hypothermia. Paramedics are waiting to offer help and kindness.
Talk and understand these people is very important, the most important thing. And medical staff too, but I think understand is the most.
Some people making their way across their border are fortunate that they have family or friends in Poland who can meet them here and get them to safety.
This family have met friends who are taking them on to Germany.
It was okay. The queues were not so big, so children were calm and everything was okay.
A long drive ahead, but at least they're safe.
Nick Dixon there. Finally, in the darkness of a bomb shelter seeking safety from the war above ground, a little girl started to sing. She sang Let It Go from Frozen. She finished to tears and applause there, and support from millions who've shared it around the world, including some of the stars of Frozen. Here's Sally Biddulph.
Можно немножечко тишины?
Nerves are clear to see, but just a few words of encouragement. And then this. A little girl doing what little girls do, singing her favourite Disney song. This could be any underground shelter in Ukraine. There are so many. But we believe it's in Kyiv, and the little girl is called Amelia. Silence surrounds her as people wipe away tears. Her song shared online by Ukrainian politician Lesia Vasilenko. She tweeted that the courage of the children in the shelters is mind-blowing. Let It Go lyrics inspire the whole shelter. I'm in tears at the unfairness. And Amelia's song has moved tens of thousands of people far from Ukraine. Idina Menzel, the voice of Elsa, said, "We see you. We really, really see you." While Josh Gad, the voice of Olaf, tweeted, "My heart is overwhelmed. These poor children. These poor people." The gap in Amelia's bottom teeth gives a hint to her age, maybe 6 or 7. So young she doesn't realise the power of her performance, written for a fairy tale, but sung in a living hell. Bravo! Sally Biddulph, ITV News. Bravo indeed. That's all for now. But do join Mary tonight for the all-new hour-long evening news. She'll have the latest from Ukraine and the rest of the day's developments at 6:30 from the lunchtime team. Bye-bye.